Welcome back to another SPR Sports News podcast. My name's Sean, and we have a lot to talk about. We had the Super Bowl happen last weekend. We had Seahawks versus Patriots. Who won it? We had a UFC fight night, and the Winter Olympics have started up, and also some good and big news in MLB coming up. All right. First, we're going to start off with the biggest thing going on, which is the Super Bowl, the biggest event in all American sports. Some people were not looking forward to this one. They didn't know what was going to happen. They were thinking maybe it would have been a defensive game or just another Patriots domination. That was not the case, except for the defensive side. The first three quarters ended up being 12-0, all field goals by Seattle. And then finally, in the fourth quarter, basically the defense is both tired out. I won't say both. I'll say New England's defense tired out, but Seattle the first touchdown Patriots got in the fourth quarter was a really good back-to-back plays to Mac Hollins and really beautiful throws. But then the second touchdown was Seattle was willing to give up a touchdown, but they just wanted to keep the ball in play, in bounds, let as much clock run off because they were up by 3 possessions. So, in all honesty, the second touchdown wasn't because the defense was tired, it's because they didn't really give a shit. They're just trying to burn a clock at that point. They're up by 3 possessions. So let me start from the beginning with the game. The game starts out really defensively, while New England is trying to jump routes. It looked like, Sam Darnold misses his spot at all. There could be some pick sixes. Seattle drove downfield, ended up getting stopped, took a field goal, 3-0, right off rip, start off the game. New England never tied or took the lead the entire game, other than when it was 0-0. After the first drive, when Seattle made it 3-0, that was it. Seattle had the lead the entire game. And to be honest, I will tell you, it never seemed like it was getting closer. Even when Patriots finally scored a touchdown, it did not feel like, and it was 19-0, they made it 19-7. It never felt like the game was going to get close. I said last week that if the best Seattle team showed up, it didn't matter how good the Patriots were, the Seattle was going to win by 2 possessions. That's exactly what happened. Seattle played incredible football. Sam Darnold did enough. He did not have any turnovers this entire postseason. The last game of the regular season and the entire postseason, 0 turnovers. Sam Darnold put that to bed. But this was not Sam Darnold's game. It was Seattle Seahawks defense's game and Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, phenomenal game. This man ran for 135 yards and 27 carries. And he missed a couple catches. He had 2 catches for 26 yards. But he dropped a couple in the first half that would have been either first downs or at least good gains in yards, to where they could have got the first down the next play or the next couple plays. So he hit some big drops. Sam Darnold was thrown a tiny bit behind some of his receivers, and Patriots DB made some incredible plays with diving, multiple times diving. One of them should have been a pick, but at the same point, when you're all stretched out diving for a ball, it's tough. Seattle had a game plan on defense, and that was, we're going to send a lot of pressure at the rookies the entire game. And sometimes we'll switch it up and send it up the middle. Sometimes it'll up, but for the most part, that left side, we are going to send someone the entire game, and our DB is going to stay in zone coverage and stay down in a flat. And if you don't know what a flat is, it means basically staying within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So basically, if a running back tries to go out there as like a screen play, he could try to jump it or at least tackle him immediately. And that's what Seattle did. They basically kept the game plan super simple. They're like, we're blitzing, we're beating up the rookies, see what they got, and we're going to put an insane amount of pressure on Drake Maye. In that first quarter, Drake Maye got pretty beat up. Drake Maye in total got sacked 6 times. That's not included how many times he got pressured and put on his ass. That's probably another 10 times. If you look at Drake Maye's numbers of 295 yards and 2 touchdowns and 27 for 43, you'd be like, oh, that's actually pretty good. a lot of those yards and both of those touchdowns were when the game was already over. Just letting you know. So those were called poop time stats. It works in fantasy football. It's basically the same thing as Pat Mahomes getting a bunch of yards and touchdowns last Super Bowl when the game was already over. So legitimately, it was not a like great game. He had a fumble and 2 interceptions, so he had 3 turnovers. That's absolutely brutal. Sorry, I need to take a drink, but he had 3 turnovers. His first turnover was a strip sack in the second quarter, or was it the third quarter? I think it was the third quarter. He got stripped. And that one ended up in 7 points. That was the first touchdown of the game. And then the turnovers just kept happening. He had a pick 6 happen against him. And he also had another interception. I think that was along the sideline. And it was intercepted. 3 turnovers. Drake Maye had as many turnovers, actually more turnovers in the postseason in the 4 games he played than the entire 17-game season. At the end of the day, like I said, I'm going to call people out. Yes, I'm not a New England guy. I'm a New York guy, so I'm very happy with the result. But I actually like Drake Maye. I liked him back in North Carolina. So I was like, damn, why did he have to go to New England? I liked him. I was hoping he went somewhere like the Raiders. But it is what it is. So I am going to call spade a spade, and Drake Maye sucked. And people were like, oh, he had no O-line. Okay, the first half he had no O-line. The second half, the O-line got better. The defense wasn't getting to him as quick. He was still throwing the ball, overthrowing it or underthrowing it because he was hearing footsteps. It got into his head eventually. And New England fans are talking about the injury to his shoulder. He got a shot in his shoulder and he said he couldn't feel it, the pain. He said he couldn't feel anything is the words he said. So I don't know if that means he didn't know what his arm was doing or he just couldn't feel any pain. He didn't specify on which way it was going. But regardless, New England fans have been calling out Broncos fans nonstop the last 2 weeks when Broncos fans were saying, if Bo Nix was there, we would have beat you. I even said if Bo Nix was there, they would have beat the Patriots. And they've been saying, oh, you can't blame stuff on injury. And now all of a sudden, we're hearing the opposite side. Oh, if Drake Maye was healthy. Are you kidding me? What a bunch of fucking hypocrites. Can you not see how stupid that sounds? Like, you can't play both sides what only pleases you. That's why I'm doing this stuff, because, like, I'm going to be a realist with this shit. Like, yes, I don't like certain teams and I like other teams, but I'm still going to tell you, like, for example, I'm a Giants fan. My team sucked. Even with whatever we draft, we have potential. I don't think we're a postseason team next year. Even though a lot of people are already trying to say Giants could be like the 7 seed. I don't believe that whatsoever. I got to see it to believe it. So I'm a realist when it comes to my teams. And to be real, Drake Maye sucked this postseason. He miserably sucked. There's only one quarterback that has played the Seattle that had a QBR above average while playing the Seahawks. And that is 1 time or 2 times or 3 times. And that is Matthew Stafford. People are going to be like, oh, it's not a regular season. It's not, MVP is not a postseason award. He played him twice in regular season. His first game, the one they won, he didn't do good. The second game, he was flawless. He was flawless. And look what happened. Seattle still won. And that's the thing. But it was a hell date. All 3 games were hell dates. 2 in the regular season, which count towards MVP. I'm sorry. This is where you have to put in strength of schedule when it came to the MVP race. And I believe, I said Matthew Stafford, his stats, I understand his completion percentage and his rushing yards and TDs were not what Drake Maye's were. I understand that. But he still had more touchdowns, more yards by significant amount in both, the same amount of interceptions. They both threw 8. I think they both had 2 fumbles during the season, if I'm correct. If not, maybe Stafford had 1 more than him. but it was very close. So they're both very, very efficient. And you go by strength of schedule. You look at the one team had to play the Super Bowl champions twice in regular season, and he honestly played incredible against them. Yeah, the first game he won 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he still, like, he put up stats, and then the second game, he had a perfect game. He legitimately, his rating was almost perfect. It was disgusting. And they lost. Which is crazy. But that's where Seattle is so good. Their special teams, their special teams, their defense, anything was good. They have JSN on the offense that got banged up in that game quite a bit. Looked like concussion protocol, looked like he had a leg thing going. Regardless, JSN took 2 people on the entire night, even when he was banged up, and that let Kenneth Walker go off. Let me talk a little bit about Kenneth Walker. His father, this is the first NFL game he's been to, and his manager had to talk to his father to basically say, hey, come see your son at the Super Bowl. That was a fucking first game to watch him play in NFL, I'll tell you that. Kenneth Walker winning the MVP, rightfully so. I was telling my dad and my girlfriend basically if there is no touchdowns, which would have been the first time in Super Bowl history there would have been no touchdowns. There's only one game that's only had 1 touchdown, and that was the 13-3 Patriots versus Rams game. And that was Brady's 6th championship with the Patriots in the Patriots' last Super Bowl. And that was only a 1 touchdown game. And this game was looking at 12-0. It looked like it could be just field goals. And if that happened, I would have given the field goal kicker the MVP. As much as you can't give it to the whole defense, I wish you could. That defense was goddamn awesome. Seattle's defense, wow, insane. Historical performance all year long. Legitimately, the only hiccups they had were legitimately against the Rams. That's it. That's their only hiccups the entire year. If this team could have played like this postseason run, and honestly, the last 3 games of the regular season plus the postseason runs, the last 7, 8 games, this team could have easily gone undefeated. That's how good this team was. And they're young. They have room to spend more money. This team can be right back here next year. So can the Patriots. The AFC is not that great. It really isn't. Like, they know how to get through the AFC, and I think the NFC is better. Really do. I think there's 4 teams in NFC going into next year that could beat any team in the AFC. 4 of them. And going back to Kenneth Walker, because I keep jumping all over the place. Kenneth Walker was gashing them. A lot of big runs. Couple stopped at the line of scrimmage, but when they needed a good run to get like some field goal position or just to burn some clock, Kenneth Walker run to the outside just worked. The DNs could not get off the blocks. They didn't call much penalties in this game, I will say. There was some holding on both sides, offensive linemen holding defensive guys. I will say that. There was a couple penalties, maybe in the secondary. There was definitely a personal foul that should have been called, and possibly an ejection for the Seattle guy that going after Stephon Diggs. That one I definitely believe should have been called. But all the other ones, you know what? Fine. They didn't throw the flags. I know I've preached over and over again. Like, if it's a flag, it's a flag. But it didn't benefit either team. Both teams are really defensive-nosed, like, hard-hitting, grinding football. So they both got the same reffing. So, and they both play the same style of defense / special teams. So it really didn't favor either one of them. It really didn't. So, honestly, if I'm fucking the whole line of Patriots, I would have tried to get away with a lot more holding. Now you look at it. Kenneth Walker kept gashing them, big play after big play. Never got in the end zone. That's the only thing he didn't cap off with would have been a touchdown. But still, his stats alone, he had 135 and 26, so over 160. Had 29 total touches. 30-yard run was his longest, even though it felt like it was longer. But incredible. Sam Darnold did exactly what he needed to. He just played good, efficient football. That's legitimately all they needed to do. There's not much more to say other than the Sam Darnold story is now complete. This man was a Jet. There was jokes about him seeing ghosts on ESPN and everywhere, with him seeing ghosts out there. Then he went to be a backup for two different teams. And then he finally became a starter again at Minnesota because of injuries to the first string and the second string quarterback. And then he rips off a 14-3 record. Has a horrible last game of the season and a horrible first postseason game. And the funny thing is, he got his ass whooped by the Rams in that postseason game. Now this year, he legitimately even had to beat the team that caused him all that grief last year with the Rams, and he had to do it twice in the biggest moments in the biggest games of his career. When he played the Rams, it was funny, it was my first podcast. It was the weekend of the second Rams versus Seahawks game, and I said this is the biggest game of Sam Darnold's career. And then it came to the 49ers game. This is the biggest game of his career. Then he came to the 49ers again in the postseason. Biggest game of his career. Then the Rams again. Every one of his biggest games of career were the teams he had to play in the regular season twice. But the NFC West was the best division by miles. Miles. When it came to this. And then the Super Bowl, obviously, no doubt about it, it's the biggest game of your career. And he fucking showed up. Minnesota right now, I would say, should feel the worst because they gave up on him. They didn't want to pay him. They didn't want to keep him back. They said, no, we're going to go back with a rookie, now going to be second-year guy. And that completely flopped. It actually makes Justin Jefferson not look like a good wide receiver. Is that crazy, thinking Justin Jefferson could be a mid-wide receiver, which he isn't? He's a top 3 wide receiver in this game. That's how bad the QB situation is in Minnesota. They gave up on Sam Darnold after a 14-3 record because of the last 2 games, and he did play very horribly in both of those games. The Jets, obviously, the Jets are just a fucking waste, and they just have been. Can't even blame him. There's nothing good there. There's no O-line. There's no wide receivers. There's nothing when he was there in the Jets. And these backups. His backup for Carolina, he actually did well when he was in, and that's where he got other teams picked him up. Like, yeah, he's probably a good backup, and he'll be a backup for 3 to 5 years, and then he'll be out of the league. But he got his chance. Then he got his chance again with Seattle, and Seattle's like, no. Their coach made a game plan, talking about being the number 1 seed in NFC, and saying 9 months from now, we'll be in a nasty weather, 30 degrees here in Seattle, but we'll be at home waiting to try to play for the Super Bowl. And we'll be happy about it. He was 12 months off. 12 months off. He said that after he became the coach in his second year, what he said did end up happening. So he was 1 year off. A team that lost Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, and quite a few other. And people were like, yeah, this team's going to be in rebuild mode. Less than 2 years later, won the Super Bowl. Won it. And are probably favored going into next year to win it again. Because they have so many of these players under contract. Kenneth Walker is one of the only players not under contract, and they would be a damn fool not to sign him. Really. They really would. There might be a team that wants to overpay him, but I think he wants to stay there, obviously. You don't really leave after winning the championship. If they lost, I could see Kenneth Walker going somewhere else. I can't see him going somewhere else now. So, Drake Maye, he looked like shit. He was the one seeing ghosts in the second and third quarter. He finally locked it in the fourth quarter when he realized, like, hey, there's nothing to lose. We already lost. So, that's Drake Maye played like shit. That O-line, the rookies, both of them, really played like shit. They were horrible. That O-line, I understand there's injuries. Maybe the left tackle should not have come back. He had an MCL sprain, if I'm correct, and he came back from it for the postseason. And in all seriousness, you should sit out more. Honestly, any other tackle would have played just as bad at this point. Just as good, sorry. just as good because, I mean, fucking, he couldn't stop anything. Even on a play that was blown dead, he was on his ass. It was bad. It was legitimately a joke watching him. So what can I see from these two teams coming up next? Honestly, I could see them both being the favorites to win their conferences. I think the NFC is tougher. You got teams like the Rams that will still have money, will still have firepower. Um, you're going to have teams like San Francisco that was very injured, and if they're healthy, they're always a team that's playing for a Super Bowl. The issue is, it's always been, is their injuries. That's the only reason they're not in the Super Bowl just about every year. The Eagles, they got a new offensive coordinator. They went out of house instead of staying in house for once, and that actually is probably going to work for their favor. They might lose A.J. Brown. He might go somewhere else. They are the highest paid offense in the league, and their offense was one of the worst in the league, which is crazy that their defense played that well but was so underpaid. So, legitimately, those four teams right there, all of them could beat any team in the AFC. That's why the NFC is going to be tough, but I could see Seattle competing, if not winning the NFC again. Then you have the Patriots. I really do think the Jaguars and the Texans need to figure out CJ Stroud. I don't know, but legitimately, the first year of having the new head coach and new defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator, all Jacksonville, and they played that well. Give me a second year of that without the slow start. That team legitimately could be Super Bowl contenders too. Broncos, maybe. Chiefs, maybe. Bills, they have too many guys with big salaries, so it's kind of hurting them. So it's kind of hard they got to put stuff together. So they're missing some pieces. So AFC is definitely easier, but I do think Patriots are significantly worse than the Seattle Seahawks. If you put Seattle over in the AFC, it'd be a clear, like, I would even say there'd be like a minus 200 to win the Super Bowl. That's how much weaker I think the AFC is than the NFC, in my opinion. Obviously, it could come next year, and I could be completely wrong. But if you base it off of this year, and obviously, yeah, Pat Mahomes is going to get healthy. They're going to get younger. Travis Kelce's probably retiring. That's going to free up some space. They're going to have to do some stuff. They're going to be better. But I do think teams like the Raiders are going to be better, so they might win a game against the Broncos. Like, I know people are like, haha, they're the worst team. They're going to be better. There's no way they're going to be this bad. Geno Smith is so far out the door. Pete Carroll's already gone. Like, they're going to be better for sure. And they're going to be trading Max Crosby, and they're probably going to get some picks, probably a first round pick, but they might have to eat some of his contract, which they don't have any monster contract. So it's okay for them to eat some contract. It really is. And they can go offensive, honestly, and just be a fun team this next year and just upset some teams. Like, I don't think they're going to be anything special, but they could upset some good teams this next year. I'm very excited to see what happens next year. But with that, that's the end of the NFL season. What would I rate the NFL season 1 to 10? I would say this season was probably a 7 out of 10. The reason why I can't give it higher is because you legitimately knew at an NFC it was either Rams or Seahawks from legitimately like week 12 of the regular season. And that's why, like, last season with the Chiefs and the Eagles, like, people would be like, oh, but the Lions, it's like, did you really believe in the Lions? Or did you think the Eagles were still the team? Like, I hate the Eagles, but I still thought the Eagles were going to get there over the Lions. And so in that season, I put as like a 5 out of 10 because it was just so predictable. Like, it was Chiefs, Eagles. Ta-da. Next year, I think will be better because I don't think it'll be so predictable. There's going to be 4 really good juggernauts out of the NFC. The AFC is going to be kind of wide open. I do want to say The sophomore class of quarterbacks. Holy shit. We got some young studs. Jaden Daniels, first year, had a postseason run. Better than any of the other ones, I will say. CJ Stroud's in his third year, third postseason. He's won 3 games, but he looked like absolute dog shit. But we'll go back to sophomores. Then you have Drake Maye. Made it to the Super Bowl. Didn't look good in the postseason at all. He looked bad. The postseason, he was not good. The defense was good. But still, he's a good quarterback. The second in MVP voting. I think they picked the right MVP. I don't believe it should have been that close in the first place, but I thought it was close. Bo Nix, number 1 seed. The only reason I think they didn't make the Super Bowl was because of him breaking his ankle. He played his ass off until his body gave up on him. Incredible. And there's one other quarterback I'm thinking of that I cannot get off the top of my head. Oh, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, look what the fucking Bears set all these second-year quarterbacks. Holy shit. NFL has some QBs for the future. There's a lot of really young talent. It's crazy because now Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, Lamar, they're still young, but they're the old dogs because Rodgers is probably retiring. Flacco will be a backup next year somewhere probably. I don't think he's going to officially retire. I think he wants to do it till the wheels fall off completely. Till his body legitimately can't let him do it. But still, it's crazy to think that Matthew Stafford will be here next year. But other than that, it's like someone like Pat Mahomes is one of the old dogs. And he's his young 30s. He's like 31, 32. Insane, isn't it? Isn't that insane? He might even be just 30. But yeah, NFL, incredible spot. I think it's just going to get better. I know one of the big topics was the halftime show. Once again, I told you guys 2 weeks ago, I usually am talking with my family. We usually have a thing going, and that's what we did. We talked. I had my stepbrother, my dad, my girlfriend. We just talked and whatnot. It's in no offense to Bad Bunny or anyone's political opinions. It didn't matter if fucking Michael Jackson came up from the dead and he started playing. It's just what we do. We're a family. We're talking. That's what we're doing. So I try to stay out of this shit. It's not and the only thing I can say is you look at last year, Kendrick Lamar won a bunch of awards. Then he played the Super Bowl halftime show. He was the biggest name last year. This year, Bad Bunny won all these awards. Now he's playing a Super Bowl halftime show. Man, was that a tongue twister. Super Bowl halftime show. And guess what? The ratings were good for both. So the ratings were worse last year because the game was already over. But that's the thing. That's all I look at is like, yeah, who's the biggest name this year? All right, let's invite him. Who's the one that's going off by September or October? By October, they usually announce who it's going to be. So by October, who through 3/4 of the year has been going nuts on the ratings? That's usually what they do. They invite him. Obviously, Rihanna a couple of years ago was a different story, but I mean, they've asked Rihanna to do it like for fucking 15 years, and she's just said no. She basically took it eventually. So that's all my opinion on that. I don't really care if you liked it or you didn't like it. You could leave that in a comment below, but I'd rather see your comments or you discuss about the game itself. Who are you looking forward to next year? Oh, I totally forgot about a team. I said 4 teams in NFC. There's 5 teams in NFC. As much as I like the Bears, the fucking Packers are going to be good next year. Yes, they're going to miss out on a first-round pick, but still, they're going to be fucking good. They got to, like, maybe get some more D linemen that are not just their superstar, but he'll be back right at the beginning of the season. He's already paid. He's ready to go. He's hungry. He feels like Micah Parsons feels like that. It should have been them the whole time. And honestly, halfway through the season, I thought the Packers were the best team in football. Packers are going to be a fucking team though. And hey, next year, Super Bowl's on Valentine's Day. Jordan Love on Valentine's Day. Come on now, that's a fun little bet. I'm just saying. Packers definitely don't sleep on them. I know people don't want to hear about the Packers sometimes. They're like, they've had so many great QBs. I understand. But at the same point, the fucking team's good. That team is really good. And a lot of them are super young and under contracts. So, and that team's mostly like 95% coming back exactly what they were. And without a Micah Parsons injury, the Bears do not win that division. They just don't. They aren't the number 2 seed. They might not even be in the postseason. Let's be honest. They might have gone on a losing stretch, but just a crazy injury. That's how fucking football go. That's how sports go. All right. That's it for NFL. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of UFC. So we won't have UFC this weekend. So we'll just let it go about talking about future, other than that Tom Aspinall got his eye surgery, both eyes. So he did have enough damage that he needed to get both eyes surgically repaired. So people gotta stop the bullshit. Like, oh, this person fought through eye pokes. This person, yeah. The only issue with that is most of these people lose. Like the one heavyweight, Acosta or Cortez Acosta, he won after the eye pokes, and it was Tom Aspinall's teammate. Like, I understand that, but people are like, oh, see, Paddy Pimblett, he's a true Brit fighter that he fought through it. Yeah, but he lost. It doesn't make sense. I never saw Jon Jones get poked in the eye 3 times with 3 fingers and legitimately continue fighting, because he was usually the one eye poking people. I'm sorry. I think eye poking is cheating. I really do. I really do. I've seen enough high-level fighters talk about it to where once in a blue moon eye poke happening is okay. But someone like Ciryl Gane, that it happens every fight. Someone like Tom Aspinall, Jon Jones, that happens every fight. DC, it happens almost every fight. People like that, it's like, and we're talking about great fighters. It's cheating. It legitimately is. If you're doing it every fight, it's cheating. And I'm not like a Tom Aspinall dick sucker. I want to see him fight. That's the thing. My favorite fight of the champions are active ones. That's the truth. Like, my favorite champions are active. I don't want to see the champion that only fights once a year. I love watching Khamzat Chimaev fight, but it already sounds like he's going to be missing most of this year. That sucks. Have an interim belt happen. The same thing with Tom. Like, you might have to do an interim belt. You legitimately might. Honestly, they might have to do Ciryl Gane versus, if Jon Jones thing isn't happening with Alex Pereira, you might have to do Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane for the interim title, in my opinion. Because he's going to be missing most of this year. So, and that's only really future thing I wanted to get into with that. I want to go over Mario Bautista. What a fucking masterclass. That was incredible. And then afterwards, on the mic, also beautiful. So people are like, oh, he lost to Corey Sandhagen. I was sitting next to my girlfriend and I kept saying, who does he need to call out? And then I was like, oh, he needs to call out Corey Sandhagen. And I kept saying, please say Corey, please say, and then he said Corey Sandhagen. I'm like, yes, I understand they fought, but it's almost like saying Arman and Islam. Legitimately, it was his first fight in the UFC and he draws Corey Sandhagen. First fight in the UFC. We're talking 2019, 7 years ago. Neither of these fighters are the same fighter. Same thing with Arman and Islam. When they were supposed to, it was Arman's first fight and Islam's third fight in the UFC. And Arman took it on short notice and he won. But it looked like he won a round. It looked like it was 29-28. One judge gave it 30-27. The one round was very close, but it still was like, oh, he already beat him. Doesn't matter. They're 2 different fighters. It's years and years later. And that's why last year in January, I wanted to see that fight happen. And so that's the thing. Like, it's a great call out. Corey Sandhagen doesn't have anyone to fight. And Sean O'Malley's probably going to get pushed. Oh, no, now actually, because Peter Yan's injured. He's now injured, it sounds like. I've seen a report, not the most reliable report, but I've seen reports that he's injured and he might miss some significant time. Issue is you can't put Merab versus Sean O'Malley 3 for an interim belt. You just can't. You might have to do Merab versus Umar 2 for an interim. I had to take another sip. But that's my opinion. You might have to do it that way. Because you can't. There's no part of me that thinks there's any way you could sell Merab versus Sean O'Malley 3. If Peter Yan is actually hurt. I've seen not the most reliable sources, but they have reported multiple times correct information, but they do try to jump the gun sometimes. So obviously take it with a grain of salt, but what I've seen from not the most reliable, but it has been reliable at times, sources that they have that Peter Yan has an injury that will be missing some decent time. So that division, it's kind of weird. Like, I think you would have to go Merab Umar too, because you can't not put Merab there. You just can't. Like, yeah, he lost a pretty convincing decision, but he legitimately has beat Umar once and Sean O'Malley twice, and has been in 5 or 6 straight championship fights, 5 straight championship fights. You can't just make him the third fiddle and do Umar versus Sean. I think it has to be Umar versus Merab too. That's my opinion. But honestly, I still think Sean O'Malley should be fighting someone else anyway. I don't believe in the whole one fight, get a rematch. I don't believe in it unless you have, for example, like a Merab situation where you've 4 or 5 championship fights, and then you had a shit performance. And he was gassing himself out. Like, he fucking, like, he didn't take a break. Now he's basically required to take a break because the next time this belt will be up for grabs, minimum is going to be the White House. That's my opinion. Even if Peter Yan's a little banged up, it's still going to be pushed back to the White House. Dana White has said that today they are meeting up and they're going to be having their talk about matchmaking for the White House. So hopefully within the next month, we actually get the answers on it. But that's going to be in late June. So hopefully the cards before don't just suck. I really do hope they don't suck. But Mario Bautista, back to you. Great fucking call out. Great performance. You looked incredible. I legitimately was saying last podcast that I believe Mario Bautista beats anyone other than the top 3, being Merab, Peter Yan, and Umar. That performance right there is why he did so well against Umar. And he even gave credit to Umar, saying, like, I wrestled against greatness and now I wanted to show off my wrestling greatness. Beautiful line. Beautiful line that he said there too. And I really do believe he really wanted to work on his offensive grappling. And obviously, maybe it was because he was going against a heavier guy that was taking a big leap. But he's still rated number 6. In my opinion, if I had to put Mario Bautista somewhere, he would be number 4. That's my opinion. You have the champion, then Merab 1, Umar 2, then probably Sean O'Malley 3, just because of his history and stuff. In my opinion, I put Mario Bautista 4, and then Corey Sandhagen 5. Instead, they have Davison Figueiredo in front of Mario Bautista. Does anyone believe Davison Figueiredo is beating Mario Bautista right now? Anyone? The answer is no one. Legitimately, no. Absolutely not. If you want to do MMA math and look at the last fight, how they both fought Umar, like Mario Bautista, that was a good wrestling scrap. Umar won 30-27, but it was like each round was a good round. It wasn't like it was like, oh, Umar dominated. It was a good, fun round. That fight was a good fight, in my opinion. And Umar had to apologize that he can't get finishes. He's not Khabib after that fight. It's like, bro, you just won against a fucking animal. I believe fucking Mario Bautista is an animal. And that raises up Umar's stock big time, in my opinion. That's why I want Umar Merab to be the interim championship fight, because they're the most deserving. Plus, that was a great fight. It really was. And Umar did break his hand early in that fight, and I'm going to take his word at it. Obviously, I've seen the injury. It was definitely a broken hand, but he says it was early in the fight. But it did look like he was gassed also, but injuries gas you. So that could have been the case. But other than that, I will say that card, prelims all the way to main event, was probably better than both the UFC cards before this. UFC 324 and 325 were worse than this fight night. The name value wasn't there. Okay, I understand the best fight so far this year was Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. But if you look at the rest of the card, compared to this card was better, other than that one fight with name value. And it was a great fight. Great fight in name value. I understand that. If you want to carry it all because of one fight, okay, then fine. That's your way you rate cards, cool. I'm talking there was 10 plus fights. They were better than 324's 10 plus fights, and they were better than 325's 10 plus fights. I thought this fight night was better. And that's the thing. You can't, and I will say all three early prelims so far, 324, 325, and this fight night's early prelims have been fucking bangers. So don't miss the early fights. Really don't. They've been some kick-ass fights early on. All right. Next, I just want to talk about a couple topics. First, Winter Olympics. You have some insane performances going on. One gentleman is doing tricks while jumping off of ramps with skis, but it isn't skis, it's ski. Because he lost the ski, and he's doing tricks with one ski, landing it and going down the hill and doing 2 more ramps. And I'm just like, dude, that's insane. And he landed backwards one time. Unbelievable performance. Then obviously Miss Vaughn, she the one that tore her ACL. She unfortunately broke her leg and is going to need multiple surgeries. It was not related to the ACL injury. Her hand hit a pole and she said she was coming down a little high and it caused her to crash out. You can't really see the leg snap in the video, but I've watched Brian Sutter's YouTube thing. I always watch him for when injuries happen, so he explained it more, but this looks bad. It looks like it's career ending. She is older. It does look like this is going to be her Olympic/World Championship runs are officially done. Obviously, when you tear your ACL, you don't think they're going to win, but at the same point now, it seems with the multiple surgeries, her career is going to be over. So unfortunate way to go out. Then you have Quad God, the fucking insane male figure skater. Quad God already has won gold for the group, and now he's doing his individuals, and he's going on to the finals, and he put up the highest score by 6 points in the semifinal round, and he just had the highest difficulty run. Insane, does the backflip, does the quad jumps and spins. Great music paired with them. Unbelievable fucking, he's incredible. He really is incredible. And honestly, he's dressed up like he's Peter Pan. So it's even funnier. And he has the hair. So it legitimately looks like a live action Peter Pan. I'm like, yeah, that's why he's winning this. He has fucking Tinkerbell dust underneath his fucking skates. He's just fucking floating around up there. How the hell are you doing this? Like, if you watch everyone's last run, you'll see how much significantly better he is. It's just, can he screw up to let someone catch up? Incredible. There was also someone that ran a sub 6-minute mile uphill with skis in the snow. You're running up a hill with skis on your feet. First, that is miserably difficult. It's hard to walk in skis sometimes, let alone run in skis, now up hills, and you ran under a 6-minute mile. What the fuck? Like, that is insane. That might be one of the most athletic things I've ever seen in my life. I watched the 5 minutes and I think 52-second clip of it, watching the whole thing, and I'm like, man, this, I don't know what is pumping in his bloodstream now, but legitimately that could cure all diseases. That shit is insane. Well, those are the big topics I want to talk about Winter Olympics. Now I'm going to get into baseball real quick. I will say next week, there's no football, no college football. Baseball season hasn't started. I am going to go over every single division, and I'm going to tell you from last place to first place who I think is going to be a winner of each division. I'm going to take a guess on how many wins they get. I'm going to look at all their over-unders, and I'm going to tell you if I think it's going to be over or under. I'm going to have a piece of paper, I'm going to mark it, and then hopefully at the end of the season, we can go over and see how good or bad I do. I plan on doing this with football also, but I started a podcast more than halfway into the season, so I couldn't do that, but I'm going to do that with baseball. Play along with me with it next week. Start looking up the teams, looking up who they picked up. I'm going to spend a good period of time on it. Obviously, I'm going to break down the UFC Fight Night, which is a good one. And then I'm going to get right into doing that. I will say that arbitration bit the Tigers in the ass, and the highest arbitration win in history, $32 million this next year to Tarik Skubal, back-to-back Cy Young winner and a Triple Crown winner, and they wanted to pay him $19 million. And then they ended up paying the guy from the Astros that hit their own catcher $35 million a year for the next 3 years. I think they were thinking they were going to lose out on Skubal. They might still trade him because of the control and prospects and stuff. But at this moment, they have Skubal. Let me think of his name real quick. Oh, they picked up Justin Verlander. I understand he's 42, 43 years old, but as a number 4 or 5 pitcher in your lineup, getting any version of Verlander as a 4 or 5, plus you going back to Detroit in a part that's not easy to hit home runs, so it's going to be better for his ERA, is pretty damn good. And who they signed was Verlander Valdez, signed a 3-year contract. He'll be the number 2 starter. They had one other starter last year that was real good. I forgot who it was off the top of my head, but I will look all that up before I make my picks. But honestly, with the pitching alone of the Tigers, it's pretty easy you should favor them to win that division. That pitching staff is disgusting. Legitimately, the Yankees, the Red Sox, a couple like the Seattle Mariners all have good pitching staffs, but the Tigers now just threw their name in a hat. They just said, "Nope, we're one of the best, if not the best pitching staff now. Suck it." And I can't argue it. The incredible signings, all within a week and a half of each other. Arbitration, they have Skubal, they sign Valdez, and they sign Verlander. And Verlander has had a under career 3 ERA in that stadium. People forget he's made the World Series in 2006. Yeah, 2006 with the Tigers back then. That was Kenny Rogers, that was Max Scherzer, and that was a young Max Scherzer. Yes, Kenny Rogers, not the singer. And then there was Justin Verlander. All 3 of those guys. They did not win. They ran into Albert Pujols. I'm just saying, Albert Pujols. Yeah, I'm sorry. That dude was a fucking menace to society. The early 2000s up to about 2014. Holy shit. There wasn't a pitcher that was safe. Pitchers were barring up the windows when they heard that he was coming into town. But that will be it today for SPR Sports News Podcast. Make sure you come in next week and listen. We're going to go over all the baseball stuff. We'll go over whatever news comes up this week. There obviously could be some things. There might be some signings. There might be some injuries. I'll maybe go over some other performances in the Winter Olympics. But until then, I'll see you guys later.